When Cleveland Public Auditorium opened in 1922, the same year Jesse Owens moved to Cleveland, it was the largest convention hall in the country. Designed by Frank Walker, one of Cleveland's foremost architects of the 1920s, the words engraved along its side were definitely a sign of the times. With a population of over 900,000, Cleveland was the country's sixth largest city in 1930. Leaders believed that advances in technology and transportation would enable industry and commerce to solve the city's growing pains. Patriotism spread after the end of World War I. Progress seemed inevitable with all the fabulous new inventions. Prohibition was the law of the land, so drinking alcohol was definitely out, and the arts were definitely in. The Federal Reserve Bank of Cleveland, another building designed by Frank Walker, opened the next year in 1923. A New York artist, Henry Herring, was commissioned to create 3 sculptures and an entryway for the new building. The first sculpture represents physical energy. It's a young man sitting on a rock, apparently taking a break from working with a sledgehammer. It's located near the Superior Street entrance to the bank. Around the corner at the 6th Street entrance, Henry Herring created these marble sculptures. The first represents honesty and reliability. The second, safety and strength. After Walker finished designing the Cleveland Public Library in 1925, he and Henry Herring teamed up again in 1930 for the design of this Cleveland landmark. Severance Hall is at the corner of Euclid Avenue and East Boulevard in University Circle. Herring's contribution was this limestone carving above its front entrance. As we can see from some of his other artwork, he became such a favorite of architects throughout the country that the National Sculpture Society created an award in his name, the Henry Herring Medal. It's presented every year for outstanding collaboration between architect, owner, and sculptor in the distinguished use of sculpture in an architectural project. Meanwhile, as Severance Hall was being built, Frank Walker was already consulting with engineers in the design of the new Lorain Carnegie Bridge. His main contribution was the curved arch on the lower edge of the bridge, and of course, the guardians of traffic. After their recent successful collaboration, Walker turned to Herring again when he needed a sculptor to create these symbols of unbounded optimism and prosperity. Little did he know that the Great Depression, followed by World War II, would suddenly put an end to all investments in new public art for decades to come. It was 32 artless years before the Fountain of Eternal Life by Marshall Fredericks was installed in downtown Cleveland. A pair of two-faced sandstone giants guard Carnegie Avenue and Jacobs Field on the east side of the bridge, and another pair guard Lorain Avenue and the historic West Side Market on the west. They are carved into pylons that extend all the way down to the bottom of the bridge and are connected to vines that grow all the way back up. This view from below reveals similar diagonal patterns on the long decorative center of the robe and on the metal bridge supports beneath it. Under the bridge, we find arches similar to the curved windows we already saw on Walker's Public Auditorium and library buildings. The bridge was finished in 1932 and listed in the National Register of Historic Places on October 8, 1976, after a controversy where a county engineer threatened to remove the statues and widen the bridge. He called them monstrosities that should be torn down and forgotten. Fortunately, good sense prevailed, and the bridge was closed for renovations, not demolition. It reopened in 1983 with a facelift and a new name, Hope Memorial Bridge, in honor of world-famous entertainer Bob Hope. His father was one of the stonemasons who carved the massive stone figures. Approaching on Lorain Avenue from the west, we see the distinctive shape of the BP building on the left. Designed to show progress in transportation, each statue holds a different vehicle. Facing west on the west side, we find a classic four-door sedan and a stagecoach. The east-facing giants on this side hold a panel truck and a delivery truck. Across the bridge, the west-facing statues hold a coal truck and a tanker truck. The east-facing statues on the east side hold a covered wagon and a hay wagon. Each of the four guardians is 14 feet deep and 26 feet wide. Walker designed doors in each one, but access is now all blocked off. The 43-foot height of the guardians is the height from the top of their heads down to the edge of their robes, not the distance all the way to the ground, which varies with each pylon. The robe draped over the forearms gives the illusion of a soft flowing texture, a technique we already observed in Herring's other sculptures. The long, sleek lines, sharp angles, and decorative patterns are all characteristic of Art Deco, a style of design that was popular in the early 20th century. The statues were carved in parts and then cemented together, as we can see by the seam lines on the neck, in the hands, and across the chest and shoulders. This historic photograph from the Cleveland Press collection reveals how they were installed. Frank Walker was known for his classical revival style, and the influence of Greek mythology is seen here in his use of grapevine wreaths and winged helmets on the guardians. The guardians are sometimes referred to as giant herms. Herms were four-sided pillars with a figure of a man carved on top, and they were used primarily as boundary markers outside the threshold of ancient Greek houses. Herms usually featured images of the mythological messenger of the gods, Hermes, who was also the Greek god of commerce and industry. He was especially associated with population growth and prosperity. Commerce, industry, growth, prosperity. These were also the dominant ideals of Cleveland in the early 20th century. The guardians of traffic sprang from these ideals. And after more than 75 years, they still loom over the city and the river, steadfastly reminding us of the goals, dreams, and hard work that made them possible.